Hey guys, this is the Ecron Writer here, welcoming you to another holiday special. And this one happens to be a non-holiday fic, and it's a one-shot for Final Fantasy II, actually, along with another certain work that was made like in the 1940s, and it was part of Disney, actually. And, yeah, I'm not too crazy about Final Fantasy II, but back then, I guess it was like 10 years ago, maybe 8 years, I don't know. But, anyways, I came up with this one shot for the winter season. And because we are currently now in the third day of winter, there shouldn't be a better time than now. So here we are, Wintertime in Salamand. I don't own Final Fantasy II, belongs to Square Enix, and a certain holiday short belongs to Disney. In case you don't know what the heck this special is, it's Once Upon a Winter Time, which was made way back in 1940. Disney was certainly at its best then, and in the 90s, aka the Disney Renaissance. Unlike now. So, I figured this would be an interesting concept. This was something I came up with several years ago, and it takes place after the demise of Emperor Matthias. Firion, Maria, and Guy, aka the Three Musketeers, are heading to Salamand, the Weapon Master's childhood home, and spending the winter there. Um, little interesting fact. Firion and the two other Musketeers, as I like to call them, their summer house is in Finn, while their winter house is in Salamand. I mean, I don't know if this will make much sense because it's further north, but yeah, it's a little idea I came up with several years back. Not very crazy on two. Thanks a lot, Great Clement. It's not as good. So, here goes. Several months have passed since the restoration of the world from Matthias's diabolical rule. There was only another month until the winter solstice, so Firion has decided to take his family, consisting his lover Maria and their buddy Guy, to move to his childhood home, Salamand, which, by the way, I got elements from the novelization. It was a snowy village amongst the sharp peaks to the north, and he hadn't been there since his brief visit during the war against the Palametian Empire. He remembered it strongly as he witnessed his town and his biological parents lost in a blaze set by goblins when he was still a child. But taking a break from his usual residence in the Kingdom of Finn to spend the holidays peacefully was a way to do it, and Maria and Guy agreed to that. So, on a carriage being pulled by a mature chocobo, the three musketeers set on a fortnight's journey toward the chilling Arctic air. Firion and the others visited the main inn, and the keeper said the cabin was ready. It was at that same spot where the weapon master's humble home once stood. It was rebuilt from the ground up after that fateful night all those years ago. They unpacked and settled down until the spring equinox should arrive. On one day, Firion was found using a battle axe, chopping down trees and leveling the logs. It was a frigid afternoon, and the thin air nearly reduced his keen vision when he looked up and saw a nearby frozen pond. He observed a young couple skating gracefully on top of it, and it filled him with a sense of nostalgia. There was also a dark red sleigh with two chocobos tied to it, instead of horses. His heart warmed at the thought, and after he loaded in the logs, he headed back to his house. Guy was sleeping soundly later that night, and the fireplace was burning brightly under the wooden mantel littered with the surviving memos from their lives. In the dark living room, Maria and Firion's faces glowed an orange hue from the dazzling flames. It was quite comforting and romantic despite the snowfall and the nippy temperature outdoors. "Maria, I have something for you." Firion handed his true love a pair of brand new ice skates. Maria looked at him aghast. "Firion, I, I never really skated before." "I will show you." Did you know this was one of the most cherished things I used to do since I was young? I've always loved being in the snow, and skating is one of my favorite activities. I want to share some of my pastimes with you, Guy. So, will you teach me? I'm kind of nervous on slipping. I don't really have good balance. Not to worry. I'll guide you through it. I promise I won't let you get hurt. He laid a comforting hand on top of hers. I hope not. She was reassured, but still a tad worried. Furion leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. She returned the gesture. Despite her fear, she was glad to be with her closest friends, away from all the bloodshed and chaos. Despite her insecurity, there was nowhere else she'd like to be in at this moment. The next day it was overcast, and Furion led Maria and Guy to the ice pond. It was located beneath an ancient marble bridge, just smack dab in the middle of a forest. There was hardly any wild beasts around, and the crisp air was amazing along with the snow glistening on the distant tree branches. By the time Maria got to the edge, Furion assisted her to put on her skates. Guy was lucky since he had large flat feet that were nearly as big as an infant elephant's. By the time she adjusted herself, she stood up and wobbled. Her posture was awkward thanks to the newly acquired skates. Furion kept her steady as they both trekked onto the unforgiving surface. Together, they walked slowly. Just take it easy, Maria. You'll be fine. Guy was standing by the bank trying to make a large snowman of himself. Step by step, Furion held her close. They hardly noticed two more people skating effortlessly just a couple feet away. Hey there! A man in his late 20s greeted the couple. He had short blonde hair, a tight red and black suit, and was accompanied by a woman. She donned on numerous heavy dresses, and the one showing was in a bright canary color matching her thick hat. The redhead was also thin despite the wardrobe. They walked over to him. The man introduced himself as Tristan, and the woman was named Lux. I've never seen you guys before. Furion was still holding Maria close to his side. I'm Furion, and this is my beloved Maria. He also pointed out the massive man, Guy. Nice to meet you, smiled Lux. I heard you actually moved here. Welcome to Salamand. Thanks. I haven't been here. Thanks. I haven't been here long, but Furion has lived here since he was still a child, until he was relocated after a big fire torched the village. Sorry to hear that. Well, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. My girlfriend and I just stopped by to enjoy the winter season. It's always been our favorite time of year. Mine too. It always has been since I was very young. That's why I'm here, and I'm teaching Maria how to skate. She blushed. This is my very first time, and already I'm beginning to slide. Skating can be a breeze once you get used to it. All you gotta do is try, Tristan motioned. Tristan motioned Maria to take her hand. She reluctantly did as Furion encouraged her. The blonde pulled her for several steps, until she got used to her footing. Eventually, she was off, and little by little she grew less edgy. Great! Now that you're used to the ice, you can do some of the tricks we can do. A few steps away, Tristan and Lux showed her and Furion as they twirled and also spin jumped on the ice. They were moving as fast as the slight bitter winds. He was also to perform not just a figure eight, but also a pair of hearts with a long narrow arrow piercing through them. Then Lux spread out her legs and created a few hearts intertwining with each other. The spectacle was even enough to catch Guy's attention. Chocobos cawed happily at their owners as well. The troll stopped making a horrid snowman and decided to get in on all the action. With a big derpy smile, he stepped onto the lake. Unlike Maria, he never had to worry about losing friction. He mimicked each of the pair's moves, but he was too big boned to do them as nimble and quick as them. His large feet caused him to topple over and he landed on his hands. Noticing the pond crack from his weight, Furion warned Guy to be careful. Tristan and Lux were still going despite the miniature distraction. The brute watched them some more, and he grew fonder and giddier. He saw them move swiftly across the ice and took a running start. He tried to copy each of their techniques, but the maneuvers left him unbalanced and he lost control. The dash made him accidentally collide into the group. Fury and Maria didn't have enough time to stop him. The two were afraid Guy might have crushed their poor bones. Fortunately, his lard only cushioned the fall, wrapping them in a cocoon. Furion, however, wasn't very pleased. Guy, I told you to be careful while skating on the ice. You can't try and crush our guests like that. I wanted to share them my favorite hobby and teach Maria how to skate. And you turned this into a disaster. Thank goodness they weren't even hurt. The troll sulked at his friend's dismay. Furion, he didn't mean to ruin this. Well, he did, Maria. Now be gone. Just go and wait for us until we are done. Do not move an inch. Got it? Guy just slowly walked away while he moped. He walked over to Tristan's display. Furion rushed over to the fallen couple. Are you two all right? Yes, we're fine, Furion. Guy never hurt us. Tristan brushed himself off. Yeah, we just slipped, that's all. I'm sure it was only an accident. This must have been his first time, too. Yeah, I guess. I might be the only one who actually knows how to skate and appreciate like you two. You were amazing. Seems like Maria's doing swell. Lux motioned to her. She was still going at a snail's pace, but she wasn't losing traction very much. You're doing great, my love. Furion went to her, and she smiled widely after he kissed her for a job well done. Little did the quartet know that the distorted markings were breaking up. The cracks over the ice that Guy's trending left had a few cracks that kept enlarging. Some detached pieces fell into the very frigid water, and it was moving at an alarming rate. The chocobos screeched as they saw the horror, as did Guy. Despite the callings, it was too late. The lake was being torn apart, and Furion and Tristan were separated from Maria and Lux. Furion! Maria! The guys were lucky they escaped onto the snowy shore, but the women weren't as they got caught in the current. They drifted fast beneath a bridge, and what was worse was the pond ending over a ravine about a mile away. Using the sleigh, Fairy and Tristan and Guy hitched a ride. The stranger used the reins and sped up the chocobos, leading them toward the descent. The jack-of-all-trades made his first attempt by freezing the rushing water with a blizzard spell. Unfortunately, the waves made contact with his hands, resulting him stunned with an agonizing freeze shock. Tristan was amazed he could cast magic spells, though his stunt was futile from the sudden pain. Furion couldn't even conjure a cure spell to soothe his hands. Neither could Maria in her distress. The chocobos and Tristan tossed a lasso toward the endangered duo, but was out of reach. Finally, Guy had a solution. With an earnest expression, he ran and leapt into the stream. Using his strong muscles, he swam with all his might toward the iceberg. He managed to catch it, and with his moaning, he encouraged Maria and Lux to ride on his back. They obliged since it was their only way of escaping. Guy took heavy panting as he headed back, leaving the ladies unharmed, but shaken. He wasn't so lucky as he collapsed onto the snow. The weather and the water were far too much for him. Only the adrenaline was just enough. Seeing their old friend, Furion and Maria ran to his side. Although the healing was able to restore Furion's hypothermia, there wasn't any there wasn't a response from Guy, even after they each summoned a Cura and a Raise spell. Meanwhile, Tristan and Lux were impressed by the ugly man's courage. Wow, he sacrificed his own welfare to save you and Maria. That's very valiant. Yes, it is. Tristan suggested to her to get some of their heaviest clothing to help warm him up. They walked over to the store group and made a decision. Furion volunteered to use his axe and chop down more trees to use logs for about 2 bonfires. Tristan and the Chocobos pitched in, while Maria and Lux acted as nursemaids, keeping a close eye on Guy and his vitals, and rubbing his back. They even made hot herbal tea for them. Night was falling fast, as was the temperature. The campfires were lit by Furion's fire spell, and it was growing late. Everyone was asleep excepting 2 people. Furion kept on rubbing Guy until his hands were chapped and as red as a flan. Maria became worried of Furion's restlessness, while he uh, continued to knead and watch Guy still unconscious. She walked over to him. Furion, you should get some rest. You've been working too hard and staying up so late. Please, get some sleep. His head hung and his voice was hoarse. I can't sleep. I can't stop thinking about Guy. He would have died because of me. I was too hard on him. No, it's not true. You shouldn't blame yourself for what just happened. Maria sat closer to them in the fire. Guy did what he did to save us. We would have died if it wasn't for him. He'll be fine. He's a very tough hombre. I I hope you're right, Maria. I really wish that Guy would make it through this. He may be tough, but we all have our limits, just like Joseph and Minwoo. The tragedies pierced his heart. He couldn't possibly stand to lose one of his closest friends, since the 3 of them endured so much grief. Maria said she'll wait until Furion decides to get some shut-eye. Instead, he just waited beside the comatose beast, until he dozed off. The bright light from the sun shining in Furion's eyes woke him up. He rose his head slowly and wiped his eyes to relieve the sand. The first thing he noticed was the bonfires that died out, and second, there was Guy in all his feral glory. He was just standing proudly watching the sunrise. Furion called out to him and he smiled. Maria, Tristan, and Lux woke up and looked at the massive mountain blocking the sun, only it was their friend. Everyone embraced him and thanked him for saving Tristan and Lux's lives from the unfrozen pond. Even the Chocobos had a certain liking to the gentle giant. Then, the duo wanted to pack up their gear and also invite the 3 heroes over for a hot chocolate, their treat. Since then, Furion, Maria, and Guy were no longer alone at Salamand. They were talking up a storm about their epic journeys with their new friends. Tristan and Lux have never been happier as they heard Maria and Furion were starting to be betrothed to one another, perhaps to the point of a possible engagement. The future looked bright for the trio, and both Tristan and Lux would be forever grateful to embrace whatever their lives would offer. I can relate to Maria here, as I don't know how to skate, and I too don't have good balance either. Unlike the Fic, the redhead also had some trouble, hence breaking off with the blonde guy. Also, I kind of had the idea of making the bonfires to warm Guy as a reference to the Pokemon anime, when Ash was attempting to revive his disobedient Charizard. And I'm referring to the novelization of the sequel in terms of Maria being in love with Furion, and that Salamand is his official home, rather than Finn. Alright, I'm done here. So this fic was a little shallow, and I can admit, but honestly, I'm not much of a fan of Final Fantasy II like I used to be. I used to make like a novelization myself known as Furion's Past, but that was a dead fic after a couple chapters in. Playing as Furion in Dissidia was hard enough, and back then I was into the story from the original game. However, things changed all these years later. I recently saw Clement's retrospective of Final Fantasy II, particularly Origins, which was where I based Furion's Past from, and I didn't realize that installment was so strenuous. I couldn't even imagine Pokemon or the Mario and Luigi series have the awkward leveling up system, or the tedious dungeon crawling, or the extremely unforgiving high encounter rates. Come on, even the original Dragon Warrior was a little more lenient. Just a little. That really made me have a change of heart on this whole ordeal. Anyway, I'm just glad to be done with this. It was a project I wanted to get out of the way for quite a long time. I'd say about 8 years. Also, I can't say on Furion's past. That may be considered as a dead fic or in permanent hiatus. Actually, yeah, that is a dead fic. I only got a few chapters in, but that was it. So that's it, guys. That's my winter's holiday special. Wintertime in Salamand. So, this is the Ecron Writers signing out. Happy holidays, guys.